Olsen. I'm a Filipino-American rugby player playing for Team USA in the Olympics in just a couple weeks.
So you're going to Paris 2024, competing for Team USA, and I'm very excited to watch you. Can you share with us the feelings you experienced when you were named to the roster?
I can barely believe it still. Like, until I feel like I step foot in the village, it's still not going to feel like the totality of realness that it should. It's been a long time in the making. I've been here training full time in San Diego for about 6 years. So I did miss out at the last Olympics. So it's been a very long awaited moment for me that like brought me a lot of joy, but I'm still holding out because, we're not there yet. We're not on the field yet. And, I know that there's a lot of people that I get to share this joy with, and that's really special.
What was the, call-up process like? Was it a call that you were expecting, or what was the moment when you actually were named? How did you find out?
Yeah, I really like our process for selections. They send out an email to everybody. They're like, the email's coming out at this time on this day. And so then everybody gets the email. And so you get to like kind of sit with your feelings with, by yourself or whoever you want to be with, all come together and celebrate each other. But like, I also do have to recognize that like for every Olympic selection, there's like two sides of the coin. And I know, especially from the last Olympics, that there's a lot of heartbreak in this process. So as much as I like feel joy for, everybody who's made it, I also feel like a lot of heartbreak and compassion for the people that, maybe it just wasn't their turn this time.
I like that process. It's also removing that anxious phone call, just staring at your phone, waiting for it to ring. Like, you can just check your email and, like you said, sit with it in your time and not have to just sit around and wait for your phone to light up for a phone call.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you're not expected to like ask it immediately. Like, you can like think through, sort through all the emotions, make sure you get like you represent what you want to represent. Like,
yeah, I would love to know, Elena, what is your rugby origin story? How did you start playing?
My rugby origin story is pretty similar to a lot of people on the team, a lot of people that play rugby in the U.S. And that's like, I found it when I went to college. So I was like a soccer player mostly throughout high school, did a little bit of volleyball, other sport, dabbled. But my cousins played rugby, and one of my cousins played rugby at the University of Michigan, which is where I was going. And he had like this incredible experience, loved rugby there. And so then I decided to join. And it was one of the best decisions of my entire life.
What was the pivot point? Like, when did you decide, like, okay, well, did you continue playing soccer or volleyball in college, or was rugby the one thing that you started to focus on in college? Or was there sort of like a pivot point where you're like, I'm going to go full-time into this one sport?
At the University of Michigan, the rugby team is a club sport. So I wasn't trying to pursue sports in college that heavily. And I was definitely looking just to change it up, try something new. And for so many years, I just had people like, oh, you're so rough. You're too rough for soccer. And I was really interested in trying something that was more full contact. And I decided to play. And I think just like immediately, I loved rugby so much. Like, yes, I loved like being able to be aggressive and like use my body in ways that I've never used my body before. But also like, it has a really strong camaraderie and community. Like, people want you to be there. And I think sometimes in other sports, it can be a little bit hostile and really like competitive. But in rugby, it's like, I love rugby and all I want is for you to love rugby too. And I want you to play and I want you to stay here and I want to be your friend. And it like doesn't matter, big, small, fast, strong. Like, we need any type of person playing rugby. And like, it's not even just your team, but it's like, we play other teams and we battle it out on the field, but afterwards there's always like a social. We always hang out, we become friends, and we just laugh.
What do you think is important for new rugby fans to know to help them love the sport?
Okay, well, Rugby 7 specifically is just like anything can happen. It's anybody's game. It's 14 minutes long, So it's in tournament style. So you'll have multiple games throughout the weekend, but one game is 14 minutes. And so one team can go up and one team can go down like in the blink of an eye. All it takes is one mistake for somebody to score what we call a try. And so that means that the games are super unpredictable and it's like an emotional roller coaster.
I love that. When I watched for the first time, it was truly, you look away, you talk to someone for a second, and you look back, and the score is like, what just happened?
Yeah. And it's like one half, it'll be like, oh yeah, this team's in the lead. They pretty much have it in the bag. And I know this happens for every sport, but it's like in a matter of like 7 minutes, everything's unfolding in front of your eyes so quickly.
So what does it mean, or have you given much thought to this question at all? But what does it mean to you to be a role model for Filipinos who may want to play rugby? As we know, it's not a common sport in the Filipino community. But as you mentioned, there are people who are playing on the men's side as well as on the women's side. So what does that mean to you?
It's really cool to like be in this space, but like my favorite thing is getting like other Filipinos that come in, because there have been other Filipinos that have come in and they're just starting out, and seeing people that are on that pathway and like really being like, oh, I want you to succeed so bad, like just tell me what you need, like whatever you need, like I'll do my best to get that to you and help you. And it's also been really cool to just try to like bridge the gap a little bit. So when we were competing in Singapore a couple months ago, it was after the LA tournament, the Philippine national teams were in Singapore as well. So it was the first time I got to meet the Philippine like men's and women's teams, and get to do like a jersey ceremony with them. And like I didn't get to watch some of their games live, but I got to watch some of them online, which I had already been doing. But it's really cool to see how rugby's developing in the Philippines. But then it's really cool to be connected even with, there's a Philippine like heritage rugby team in the state that is,
cool.
I have their scrunchies so I can shout them out, because they're called the gosh, you can't see it. It says Magandakin, and it's the star. And it's just like a bunch of like Filipino Americans and Filipino Canadians, and it's like they play with the Filipino flag, and then they go play in tournaments. And they're just like, bringing awareness to the Filipino community, giving opportunity for Filipinos to play. And I love so much that that they exist. And I hope that someday I can play on that team.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I didn't know that existed, but now I'm definitely tapped in.
Yeah.
I also have this little like thing right here. It's a nod to the sun and the stars as well.
I was thinking that. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like a halo around you almost.
So, as a Filipino American, how do you define your relationship to the culture?
I've definitely thought of it before, because it's like, how do you quantify it, or how do you like put it into words, something that like you really feel in you? And I definitely didn't grow up around a bunch of Filipinos that weren't my like family. So my mom's from the Philippines, my dad is from the US, but we had like her brothers and sisters, and so I had like my cousins around, but I didn't have many other people. So it pains me to say that I don't have the language on my tongue yet. I have a little bit.
Well, I don't either, so it's okay.
But I don't know how to say that like I relate with the culture, besides being like, whenever I meet somebody that's Filipino, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I just feel so connected with them. And even I'm from Michigan, but I moved to San Diego, and there's like Filipinos everywhere. And there's Filipino food, there's Filipino restaurants, there's like grocery stores, and like just having some of those spaces does feel like home in a very different way. And I mean, I know that's something that you talk about being like mixed, but like having two different homes and not always feeling like one of them represents like who you are together.
I mean, I relate to that a lot. And I know it is a loaded question. It's a really difficult and introspective question. And last summer, I was working on a project about the Philippine women's national football team at the World Cup. And I was doing an interview with someone who is a licensed therapist, mental performance coach, sport mental performance coach. She's Filipino. And she asked me that question. And I was like, well, that's a really hard question for me. Because at that time, I had never been to the Philippines. So I was like, I don't really have a relationship with the culture because I've never been there and I don't speak Tagalog. And she told me something that I remember every day to this point in my life is she said, well, you don't have to take it so literally. Like your relationship to the culture can be, you feel proud every time you think of the Philippines or you see Filipino people. It can be you love the food, or however you define your relationship is your relationship, and it doesn't have to be so literal. And so when I ask this question, truthfully, it's a little bit of a trick question, but it's so that I can also have this conversation with others, because both of my parents are from the Philippines and I grew up here in the States. Similar to you, other than my brother and my parents, I grew up in a very white town in Idaho, so I didn't have the biggest Filipino community. So I felt like I didn't have a connection, but then I came to peace in the last year and in my own sort of journey into understanding my relationship, that is my relationship to the culture, and I'm super proud of it. I've since been to the Philippines and that's really helped me connect. But even prior to that, like any connection I feel to another Filipino, or even how excited I was that I get to sit down with you, like that is my relationship to the culture, because I feel we have this invisible string that connects us all. And I think the sense of pride is really what defines a lot of people's relationship.
Definitely. And like, I know that like I have Team USA like on me, but I so badly, and like I, you know, like I want to be like, but I'm also a product of the Philippines. Like I'm competing for Team USA, but I want you to know that behind this jersey is like a proud like Filipino American player that wants to represent like everything back home as well.
And I think that's what makes your story really special, is you are both, and you are proud of both, and you are proud to represent both, and that is beautiful in itself. And that is exactly it. Like you can exist in both worlds. That's something I really had to come to terms with and accept and be really happy with, is you can exist in both worlds, and that's perfectly okay. Where can you trace your mom's roots?
Yeah, my mom, she moved to the States when she was about like 25, but her and her family, they're from Iloilo.
Oh, okay. How was your experience when you went?
Yeah, I went for like less than 2 weeks. But it was amazing. And I also think about it all the time. And I'm like, I want to go there for a long time. I'm a little bit nervous that I'll want to stay there forever, but I'm like, that's not such a bad thing. But I did get to see, you know, a lot of family, and I got to see my grandfather, my Lolo, that's there, and spend some time with him. And just kind of like get to see my mom interacting and just like run the town, you know. She's like speaking for me, and I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to get my words in, but she's like, yeah, we'll have that, we'll have this, let's go do this, like, hey, you can't cut us in line, you know, like she's just like, yeah, she was really in her element, and that was really cool to see.
I was gonna say, in her element, and you got to see it. I feel like I didn't go with my parents, but while being there and after being there, I can definitely understand, and it makes you appreciate a lot of things about them and the way they even go about their lives a lot more, because you're like, oh, okay, this makes more sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting them back in context. Like you have them in the context of our lives, but then you put them in the context of like the lives they had before us, and you're like, okay, I have more patience and more grace for why things can be so different at times.
When you were there, did you stay within Iloilo, or did you get to travel anywhere else?
We went to a small island, and I'm sorry, I'm missing some of the geography. I'm trying to learn. My uncle was actually going through it a little bit with me, because we were talking about languages and how it's like separated by mountains and not by water because of the way that people moved. Anyway, I think we went to this small island called Guimaras, but I don't remember where that one was.
So I know just from looking at your social media and learning a little bit more about you that you are really passionate about other things outside of rugby. So what are your off-the-field passions, and what are things that you want people to know about you outside of rugby?
Well, besides, being Filipino, because that one I'm trying to bring out, I'm trying to bring that one out a little bit more, when I'm talking, but, yes, I do have an MO, and, that's, like, trying to do a better job of, like, taking care of our environment, and taking climate action, really trying to limit the effects that we've already kind of put out into the atmosphere and the warming that we're causing.
What sparked the passion in sustainability and protecting the environment? I know there's a lot that goes into it. What sparked that passion for you?
I mean, I grew up around a lot of nature. My dad was very like, oh, why is there all this litter on the ground, and, picking things up. But then, to tie this into my mom, she she loves like planting, propagating plants, trying to make plants. The number of times we tried to make like mango trees grow in our house in Michigan, or like coconut trees grow in our house, like they never worked out, but she was always, like tending to plants. But also kind of like the idea of like, we have everything we need. Like, we don't need to go buy more things. Like, I can like jerry rig this thing to become useful in another way. And so I did grow up like that a lot. And so that was my mindset. And it still kind of is my mindset now, but it was really kind of learning more about the public health impacts of climate change, and the damage that it's currently causing a lot of people, and the potential it has to put everybody at risk for, extreme weather events, but also like mental health, like climate refugee situations that we're seeing right now. So everybody's at risk for some sort of like life-changing event. And that is kind of why I care about it, because I know that it's already impacting us. It's going to impact us when we're in Paris. It's supposed to be super hot while we're there. But beyond, us, it's already impacting so many communities, and communities that don't have as many resources as we do here in the United States.
Yeah, 100%.